Good afternoon, everybody. This is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer podcast. I'm back after a 2-week hiatus. Oh, look at that. I am even out of practice. I got the echo going and everything. Let me fix my audio settings, make sure that there's not going to be a big echo over here. And then we could get this show on the road about Miss Sarah Boone. All right. So Lauren Knighty just did a whole live stream about it where she replayed the majority of Boone's apology, if you could call it that. She had apologized to the family of Jorge Torres, sort of. She had apologized to a lot of people, kind of, sort of. But more importantly, she wanted you to know that she forgives all of you, for laughing at her, for making fun of her, for jeopardizing her case, for placing her life and her freedom in peril, and a number of other grievances that she's had over the life of the 5 years that she's been litigating this thing. The judge was never so there. I mean, usually when you have these sentencing hearings, the judge is very deferential. He's very, they tend to give like their reasoning behind why they're doing what they're going to do. They usually give a speech where they say, hey, you're a piece of shit and I can't lock you up for life fast enough. Or they'll give some kind of a statement about explaining their explanation about why they're not going to hand out the maximum sentence. They do these things. This judge, in this case, was just, well, sentence her to life. Done. And that's what he did. And it was a beautiful thing. I mean, I don't know if you could say it was a beautiful thing, but it was an interesting thing, to say the least. So my thoughts on this case, she had an attorney. For those of you who are unfamiliar, and if you're watching this live stream, I'm guessing that you're pretty familiar, but as you recall, she had 8 separate attorneys, all of which had rejected her as a client because she couldn't follow directions. She couldn't take advice. She thought she was smarter than everybody else. She was calling her attorneys names like duds and morons and other choice language. She was bullying her attorneys to some degree. I'm sure that she had occasions where she was sitting there on her attorney visits where she was chastising attorneys for not following through on what she believed was good legal strategies. And so you had 8 of these guys come in, guys and gals, come in to try to represent her, to try to bring some normalcy, some sense of calm to the proceedings, to no avail. Until finally she was forced to represent herself because the judge made a finding that she has been deemed to have waived her right to an attorney through her superfluous conduct. I don't know if the judge used the word superfluous or not, but he just said, look, normally everybody has a right to an attorney. You've had 8 separate attorneys all come in here one by one, and all of them have reported back to me that you're a problem and that they shouldn't have to be subjected to having to represent you because of they're over here trying to help you when you're carrying on in such a way that they can't. So you know what? You're going to represent yourself. And then we tried that. She tried that for a good month and a half or so. Maybe it was a couple of months. She tried to motion for a new trial. She tried her hand at discovery motions that she knew nothing about. She was clearly in over her skis in her attempts to represent herself. And in the course of doing that, you would see her get aggravated, upset that she was getting dragged into court, upset because they gave her like a prison-issued laptop computer in which to do all of her legal research. Maybe it had access to the internet. I'd imagine it would have or had to have. They had occasions where they were monitoring her as she was trying to go through thousands of pages of evidence. that she may or may not have already seen. I don't know, but she had grievances the entire way until this one attorney answers the call, because he himself was a fan of true crime, the Law and Crime Network or Court TV or whatever he was watching. And he says that, you know what, Sarah Boone, I'm going to take you up on your offer. I am keen with a sense of creative or whatever she had called for in that hand-drawn 1920s style advert that she put out to the legal world. You could represent me and be famous and on TV, playing up the idea that this is going to be broadcast nationally. Make yourself a star. Now he claimed early on that he wasn't doing this for free, but what money is he getting out of Boone now? She's never getting out of jail, and he had to know that that was a thing. He had to have known that. He took on the case with like a month to prepare for trial, swearing up and down, oh, there's no chance that they're going to make me do this trial without at least allowing me a continuance so that I could get up to speed, whatever. Judge said, F that. No chance, buddy. No chance. You knew coming into this case the history of the multiple continuances and the attorneys and the delays, and we're not playing that game. So look, you're the one that wanted in on the case. Nobody forced you to be here. We're starting the trial in October. Take it or leave it. And that was it. He had to do the trial. So for the time that he had allotted, I have to imagine that he put his entire law firm on hold to try what this was pretty clearly the case of his life. It was his big appearance on TV, probably the first time he'd ever litigated on television. He didn't start off very well. There was a number of things that lent itself to not go his way. He did his best. He ended up getting yelled at by the judge. He ended up fumbling several pretrial motions and becoming the subject of scorn and ridicule as people were evaluating and critiquing his performance. But he kind of pulled it together for a trial. I thought that he did an admirable job with the hand that he was dealt. And, whatever you think about him as a person, I don't think that he's a bad person. I think that he had genuine designs on this idea that he was going to substitute in and talk Sarah Boone down and get her to do the right thing and to take a plea deal. Historically, this is a guy that has been known for getting really good plea deals, and he got her a sweetheart of one. This is a lady that was facing life imprisonment, life without the possibility of parole. And the plea deal that he got her, I'll go over it with you. She was offered a plea deal of 15 years in prison. All she had to do was plead guilty to manslaughter, which was a lesser included offense of the original charge, which was second-degree murder. Manslaughter was a charge that I had mentioned when I was covering this case earlier on. Made a lot of sense. As reprehensible as her behavior and her personality became, it grades on you after a while, the longer you listen to Sarah Boone. She really came off to me without knowing anything about her as like this, she really got plastered, didn't have a clue what she was doing. And then she woke up and her boyfriend is dead. I genuinely don't know if she remembers what happened. I gave her that kind of benefit of the doubt, as I'm sure a lot of other people did. And then, of course, the details of the trial come out and you find out that she was beating him with a baseball bat while he was sitting inside the suitcase as he was trying to poke his hands out to unzip himself. She was taunting him. And, of course, the infamous video. This is what you do when you cheat on me. This is what you do when you choke me. My Sarah Boone impression. You heard her give her testimony of her accounts of how that all went down. And what she said was essentially, she tried to do similar to what she did in her sentencing hearing. She tried to make herself out to be the victim. And of course, she was using this battered spouse syndrome defense, which, of course, we all know now, as we knew at the time of trial, was essentially a self-defense argument. I was in fear for my life, and so I kept him locked there in the suitcase. I remember I live covered the cross-exam of Sarah Boone, and I was so upset at the prosecutor for not grilling her in the moment. And because there's so many different things that he could have pulled up on her cross-exam, I was so angry about why is he letting her get away with saying that without nailing her to her statements and inconsistent statements. And why is he letting that go? It's like, why is there so much meat on the bone here? That can't be it. It wasn't it. It wasn't it. He did have, I'm not saying it was the most artful of prosecutors' cases. I'm just saying that he had a plan, and he very largely redeemed himself on rebuttal. Came in and hit all the points he was supposed to make. Didn't allow her to get away with inconsistent statements. He fixated on the statement about why was he in there. Her words was, because I wanted him to understand what he did to me. I kid you not. That's what the F she said. Let me just play this portion of her live testimony so we can review. You thought that her sentencing testimony was bad. This is what she said on the witness stand during her trial. These were her words as she was explaining her mindset when she had George locked in the suitcase. Do I have? This is so out of order. Do I have this? Yes. Okay.
I guess the gist in it for him to understand that right now I feel safe and right now I have the ability to actually speak to you in a manner that normally I would not have the ability to do.
And you were intoxicated.
Yes.
And you would agree that you said some things you should not.
Yes.
Right? But you realized he could not get out and get at you. Is that fair?
At that moment, yes.
He could not get out and get out you. Get out at you. The significance behind that question is if she says yes, like she just did, then it can't possibly be self-defense. She's now eliminated the threat through her testimony. There's no longer, when the jury hears that, any ability for them to say that, oh, well, yeah, self-defense, battered spouse syndrome. No, she just, through her testimony, eliminated that as a defense. And she goes on.
So it goes on for about 10 minutes.
Yes.
You heard it here today, did you not?
Yes.
You heard his voice as he was speaking from the suitcase.
Yes.
That was his voice on the video and audio.
Yes.
And you heard your voice on the video and audio.
Yes.
That was your voice.
Yes.
All those things said by the man were said by George in that 2-minute video.
Correct.
All the words said by the female were said by you in that 2-minute video.
Correct.
Were you intending on showing him the video the next day?
Yes.
At the time or the next day, is it fair to say you don't even remember a videotape?
I do not.
So, from what you can tell from watching it, did that refresh your memory about that event?
It did.
Why did you say all that?
I didn't realize that I caught an objection.
All right, I'm talking about just the 2-minute video part that was recorded. Could you just tell the jury what you were feeling, what your feelings were at the time, and then explain that to the jury?
So this question right here was like the smoking gun evidence to convict. If this is the part of the testimony I'm thinking of, where she says, I just wanted him to understand. He's asking her, what was going through your mind? What were you thinking at that moment? Now, battered spouse syndrome, in its nature, being self-defense. If her answer was anything other than, I genuinely thought that if he somehow got out of that suitcase, I was a dead lady. I was dead. I was in fear of my life. I understood, and I was thinking that if I let him out, or if he gets out, I'm dead. And I'm too intoxicated to go anywhere. I'm dead. It was a matter of life and death. If she says anything other than that, it's not self-defense. So he asked her attorney a stupid question to ask Sarah Boone. Now, Lauren Knighty just did a whole video explaining how she's a narcissist and she has these ideas of grandiosity where she's smarter and prettier and better than everybody else. And she's always the main character in whatever story she's in, as evidenced in this testimony and in the testimony she gave on sentencing yesterday or whenever it was. And her thought processes, if she believes she's a narcissist and that's the way that she thinks, and she's always the main character, there's nothing wrong to her with what she's saying. But what she actually says with what she says next is it invalidated her entire defense, that there was no chance that they were going to find in her favor. She took away reasonable doubt because she said it herself. The reason why I did this was because I wanted him to understand. It had no concern about his well-being. There was no concern about his safety. There was no concern about his ability to breathe. And more importantly, there was no concern about her own safety. WTF. I don't know if her attorney knew that she was going to say that or not, but he must have, because she just said it like 5 minutes ago in testimony. Why did he ask her that question again? Did it lose the case? I mean, I'll never know what moves their hearts and minds, but I'd imagine it was probably their smoking gun. This is what she said.
You talked about it before. You said he was in that confined space and it was my chance, but do you want to elaborate on that? Or?
Sure. I want you all to know that the majority of the time, am always afraid and always scared.
All right, well.
She said that because her attorney told her to say that. It was completely weird in the context where she offers it. I just want you to know that I was scared all of the time. This was like the coverall. But what I was really thinking was,
I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. But would it be fair to say that you had some anger at that point?
I did.
Would it be
such a stupid question. Why would he say that? Why would he ask her that? Would it be fair to say that you were angry and pissed off at your ex-boyfriend who you claimed had abused you for years? Yeah. And you wanted him to feel that anger, didn't you? Yes, I did. And this was your big chance, wasn't it? It was. And he couldn't go anywhere. Nope. He was a captive audience. Yep. And this was your chance to tell him everything about how you felt and get him to understand how you felt. Yes. Those are questions that the prosecutor asked, dipshit. What the F? Never mind my critique. Let me continue with this.
Would it be fair to say that you wanted to tell him off to some degree?
I just wanted, yes, for him to have a better understanding, which was the whole point of the videos and documentation prior.
I wanted him to have a better understanding. She's saying stuff like that on the stand. If you watch my live coverage of the video, you'll see me freaking out when the prosecutor is not grilling her on those statements. I didn't know he was going to do it on rebuttal, but that's what he did. But in the moment, I was like, how is he not going back to those statements and grilling her and nailing her to those statements and making sure the jury doesn't miss that she just said that she just invalidated her self-defense arguments? He had a plan. I was getting really upset and excited in the moment. I'm just saying. When she said that, and her defense attorney is the one that introduces that testimony, hear her again.
And you could tell.
Which was the whole, wanted, yes, for him to have a better understanding, which was the whole point of the videos and documentation prior.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You're not going to find many better examples of people testifying in their own criminal cases where they say something stupid on direct exam that completely tanks their case. This is the reason why when you're sitting there on a criminal trial, you have a right to remain silent. You should effing use it. And she did not. Oh, all right. So that was what she said in live testimony. Now, mind you, back to this plea deal. I got way off track, going on my large rant about that bit of testimony. So 15 years, she had to plead guilty to manslaughter. It was a significant reduction in the potential prison time being offered, potential being basically 22 years to life. There was a potential for early release with the way that it was being charged. With good behavior, she would have been eligible to serve only 65% of the 15-year sentence, basically equals 9.75 years. She'd been in there for about 4.5. When you factor in the credit for time served, she was going to do less than six years, like 5 3/4 years or something like that. She'd be out by next decade. Start of 2030. She rejected it. The prosecution had argued that the plea, they had offered it because she was a first-time offender, and it was going to be an opportunity for her to take responsibility for their actions. That was their reasoning when they gave her that plea deal. But she said no, maintains her innocence, and then she did what she did, and you saw how that all went. As opposed to getting out by 2030, well, she's not. She was sentenced to life. She was sentenced to life. There were victim impact statements. Anna Torres, that was George's mother, talked about the pain of losing her son. She had vividly described the moment that she was informed of her son's death. And look, whatever you think about George and his character and who he is, who he was as a person, he was still somebody's son, brother, father, whatever. He was a guy that didn't deserve to be suffocated in a suitcase. Did he commit acts of domestic violence against Sarah? Based on the evidence, it appeared that he did. I mean, those injuries are hard to do to yourself. They probably beat the shit out of each other, honestly, on multiple occasions. Cops were called on him. Cops were called on her. There were competing charges. But I think that the effect of seeing all of the look, I'm not impressed by the video of him destroying the television. It looked like that was something else that they were doing. She videotaped it. He wasn't, I don't know. It was just a weird bit of evidence to try to get in. I'm just saying that Sarah Boone is not the victim that she wants to be. It appears to me. Anyway. Anna talked about losing a son, losing a father, brother, uncle. She emphasized the ripple effects of Torres's death across their family, concluding with a statement by contrasting the blessings that she feels to have raised her son and his children with the life experiences that Boone will no longer be able to have. Then Victoria gets up there, his sister, talks about the profound trauma that her family has endured as a result of this tragedy. She stated that the simple act of closing a suitcase has become a trigger for her, reminding her of her brother's death. Anna Victoria, the victim's daughter, gave a statement on behalf of herself and her two siblings. She shared the deep emotional, mental impacts of her father's passing, including waking up screaming every morning for the first year after his death. She contrasted that pain that her family endures with Sarah's ability to see and speak to her own son. Little girl was robbed of her dad. She concluded, emphasizing her family's determination to keep her dad's memory alive. And then they get to witnesses that had something to say about Sarah, of which there were a few. There was Diane Smith. She was a chaplain at the Orange County Jail for 30 years, had known Boone for 4 years. The 4 years, I'd imagine that she was incarcerated there. Stated that Boone had enrolled in the Christian program at the jail and was very sincere in her efforts to change her life and be a better person. That's according to her non-expert opinion. So that was a waste of time. She described Boone as being kind, helpful, loving to serve. I got to tell you, in my career as an attorney, 11 years I've been doing this, character witnesses are the least helpful. Oh, you believed he was a good guy? So you're here to tell me that he was sincere, he was nice to you? Was he a good employee? Did you know that he just essayed an 11-year-old girl repeatedly over the course of 3 years without anybody knowing it, and threatening that if she were to tell anybody that she would be unalived? Did you know that? Would knowing that change your opinion of what you just came in here to say? I don't know. Character witnesses are stupid, but that's kind of all you really have in a sentencing hearings, isn't it? Mariella Hill came in to testify, said she spent 3 months in the Orange County Jail, met Sarah when she was moved to a new cell. She testified that Boone was very helpful and kind, and said she had nothing but good things to say about her character and faith. Lana Albert gets up there to say via Zoom, her testimony was wild, said that she is disabled with end-stage renal disease. I think she said she was 50 years old. She stated that she had been friends with Boone for almost 2 years and described her as kind, honest, good person. She offered an example by recounting that Sarah wanted to be an organ donor, but she couldn't after the verdict, and that was what upset her more than anything. Bullshit, it did. But that's what she said. Dr. Julie Harper got up there to testify, a forensic psychologist providing expert testimony on behalf of Sarah. She said that she had conducted 9, I don't remember if Julie testified at the trial or not, but she said that she conducted 9 interviews with Sarah, had administered a variety of psychological tests, and reviewed numerous records and documents, including some pertaining to Boone's relationship with George, and concluded that Boone suffered from battered spouse syndrome. Rehashing some of the old trial arguments, I don't see how that helped Sarah. She testified that Boone had suffered from anxiety for a long time. She developed into post-traumatic stress disorder. She described Boone's childhood trauma, including her father's untimely death. She also spoke about the power imbalance in the relationship between Boone and Torres. She did not review any of Boone's mental health records generated by the jail. And then Sarah gets up there to testify herself. And that was amazing. Lauren, I'm going to use some of your video. I just closed it out. Of course I did. Of course I did. Man. Well. So much for that. If you haven't seen the sentencing video with Sarah Boone, all you really need to know about it is that you were expecting remorse. You were expecting for her to get up there and say, you know, she's sorry for what she did, whatever. But what she proceeded to do was turn it into her moment to perform. She wrote a letter. That she read to the court for her statement. 1 second, folks. Ah, well. Well, what are you going to do? Oh, here it is. I found it. Oh, sorry. Oh, I had it pulled up to where she was just saying nonsense. And right before I had come on. I'm going to play just a little bit of this to you. Okay. When I have my clients for these sentencing hearings, when I advise them on what they should say, it's always, look, you're going to express remorse. You're going to express your sorrow. You're going to express your regret. Sorry, folks. Work stuff. But what you're not going to do is say anything counter than, look, I humbly request the mercy of this court. I could never take back what I did. I think about it every day. I think about the pain that I've caused to Torres' family. I run through that day, every second of that day, every day of my life, wondering what I could have done different. If only I chose not to drink that day. If only we did anything else. Why did I do what I did? Whatever. I'm so sorry for everything that I did, all this remorse. But what she chose to do instead of all of that was make herself a victim in a way that was just completely bizarre. Lauren, this is from your stream earlier. This is what she's carrying on about. I'm not going to play the whole thing. This is just an excerpt. An excerpt. So what the judge is looking for, just show me any remorse. Tell me that you're taking accountability for what you did, some responsibility for what you did. I need to know if I'm going to give you life because you're not demonstrating, or if I'm going to give you some lighter sentence. Show me what you got. And this is what she proceeds to say.
Her body into glass doors, kicking in my front and back door over and over and over. For breaking or removing the locks from all of the doors, and sometimes
She's saying, I forgive you. I forgive you for doing all of these things. This whole thing is a soliloquy for her to forgive all the people that have wronged her, as opposed to the opposite of what I had suggested she do, which is just apologize and take responsibility.
the knobs altogether, so I had nowhere to feel safe, including the sacred space of my son's room where he beat me bloody on his bed. For terrorizing and threatening my blind and deaf dogs by leaving the gate open I built to.
In case everyone forgot in this long rambling, no one fucking asked.
Well, here's the thing. Is there any evidence of all this?
Thanks, Lauren, for dropping an F-bomb on my stream. No, it's totally cool. Go check out Lauren's stream earlier, because she kind of ran through a lot of the finer points. Now, there was a question. Do you think her lawyer knew what she was going to say? Yes, I do, because it was his job to know. And my understanding of that is he came out and gave an interview and said that, look, I tried to edit her statement as much as I could, but she had a plan. She was going to say whatever she said. Now, look, this is kind of the part of, I think at this point, he has to sleep well at night knowing that this lady could have been out in 6 years. I got her a plea deal that she's never had. She would have been out by 2030. You could not have done better with that on those facts. And she rejected it. I told her not to testify, not to say certain things. She said it anyway. On sentencing, I prepped her to say certain things. She said she was always going to do what she wanted to do. That's the thing with Sarah. Throughout this entire case, there was not an attorney that she was going to listen to and heed their advice. Because she wanted to be smarter than everybody else in the room, including her own attorneys, she got herself life in prison when she could have been out in 5 3/4 years. And so I don't think that he's losing sleep over this at all. I haven't told her. I told her not to say that. If it were me, I might have taken her statement and just ripped it up. Thank you. You're not going up there with that. And she would have been really pissed. Oh, she would have been really pissed. And then she might have, I don't know, made a big stink of it. Actually, it might have been worse because then you get her speaking off the top of her head. It's probably going to be a lot worse. But I would have just told her, look, you're not saying any of that shit. You're not saying, I forgive you. You're not saying you forgive the family for not caring. You're not going to say you forgive George, who's dead already. You're not going to say you forgive the general public. She had grievances with social media, with the general media, both public and private, with the people that were covering this case. She called people that were profiting off this case blood money because they are covering a case that she was involved with, and she was sore about it. She was forgiving anybody when nobody asked for her forgiveness for the various wrongs that she had imagined, sitting all by herself in that jail cell for as long as she has. And look, she's got a lot more time to think about it now, doesn't she? She said about everything that you should not ever say in a sentencing, and the judge wasted no time where he says, well, life, and thank you. Have a good day. Pretend judge says, others have said Owens told Sarah to expect 20 years when they were at counsel table, allegedly. I would agree. I think I would have told her something similar, but it would have been predicated on the fact that she's going to show some remorse and take some accountability and try to be sincere as best as she could. I would not assume, I mean, look, you have your clients and you never expect that this is going to be the maximum. Life sentences are reserved for like the worst of the worst cases. Like their sentencing guidelines. This was largely an accidental death, even if it became not accidental. The farther she got into her drunken stupor, it was probably a large portion of it was accidental, but it was intentional at the same time. That's not normally the case that you would expect to find a life sentence for. When I was considering what she would get at trial about a year ago, when they were prepping for trial, I thought that, she's probably going to get like, I don't know, something like 5 to 15 years. And she was offered 15. She would have been out in 6. So when she sentenced that, and then the judge hears her blaming everybody else, not taking responsibility, when you hear that, and Owens didn't see that, I don't think that he knew. Well, I can't say that I don't think he knew. I think he was hoping that she wouldn't say those things, and she said it anyway. So she got what she got. And so I don't think that he was surprised by the sentence. I think that if he gave her that advice, it was predicated on a normal case, what you would expect to see, because as attorneys, we've all seen worse cases than what we have. And this was not the worst case that I've ever seen. Guarantee it was not the worst case that Owens has ever seen. He just didn't think she was going to do that. And when she did, I'm like, what are you going to do? Advice at that point kind of goes out the window. I was like, what do you need me for? You're not going to take my advice. What do you need my advice for now? Pretend judge. Really, I bet Jenny Allison says, I bet that is why she didn't take the plea. She figured it would only be another 5 years. No, they made it, Jenny, they made it absolutely clear. Matter of fact, before they let her reject that plea, they went on the record because Owens is like, look, you're not going to accuse me of ineffective assistance of counsel. I want everybody in the universe to know that you've been offered a plea deal that's going to have you out in 6 years. And so he had the judge. And mind you, that plea deal where she was only going to do 65%, that was predicated on the idea that she was pleading to manslaughter. When you plead to second degree murder, there is no, with good behavior, 65%. No. You're doing all of that sentence. So 20 years was going to be 20 years credit for time served out in 16. And the judge made it clear to Sarah directly. He was looking at her like I'm looking at the camera right now. You understand by rejecting this plea deal that the minimum sentence that you could possibly get is 22 and a half years if you reject this plea and you're found guilty at trial. And she said, yes. And you still want to reject it? Yes, I do. Okay. That's how it went. That is how it went. I don't know, man. Can you replay his press afterwards? Oh, I didn't catch his press conference either. Let me see if I could find that really quick. I didn't even know that he gave. Well, I just didn't catch his press conference. Owens, let's see. If I can't find it quick, then I'm just gonna have to do it later. But nah. Yeah, I'm not gonna find it super quick. I thought it'd just pop up, and it hasn't, unless oh. Yep. I don't know. I haven't seen the press conference, but I will look for it later. But I got to imagine that that's kind of what he was thinking. Oh, Jenny has clarification. I meant that if he had told her that in advance, I believe Judge Kranick's speech at plea hearing, the lowest is 20.5, right? Was a huge warning to her. Yeah, no, he told her. And there's a reason why that happened, because she was going to say, there's no chance she wouldn't have said that. I didn't know that I could have got out in 6 years. Nobody told me that. There's no 100% chance she was going to use that as a potential appellate issue. Hey, you know what? I have a link to Lauren's channel. I had it up, but yeah, go check out her video after you're done watching her. Go check it out right now. But she gave her review of. She went through the entire thing. Ooh. Here, I'm going to drop a link right now in the comments so that you all can have that. There it is. All right. Yeah, imagine her unedited version. Owens did say, I heard that there was portions of it that he edited or just took out pages. I have no idea what she was. It must have been some kind of unhinged thing. I couldn't even imagine. But she did it. I'm wondering if her witnesses still feel the same way after her giant FU. I think that people have been trying to be sympathetic to her the entire time. I think that even the general public's like, gosh, what a terror. I think that the way that I viewed it is, what a stupid thing to do. You got like so drunk and you're playing hide and seek and then you lock the guy in the suitcase. How was she supposed to know that he was going to suffocate to death? And she goes to bed. Next thing you know that he wakes up and he's dead. What a horrific thing to happen. Could happen to anybody. I mean, I don't know if it could happen to anybody, but it seemed unfortunate. It seemed unintentional. I believed her when she said, I was just too drunk. I didn't remember. And then the more you get to know Sarah Boone, the harder it is to feel sorry for her. And then this giant FU to the general public and to Torres and his family and everybody else. It's like, get the F out of here, man. Bury her under the prison. Throw away the key. She's done. She's cooked. She's cooked. It was the most bizarre sentencing speech I've ever seen. I think that Owens should not have allowed her to go on this narrative. He should have asked her direct questions. But it was her right. There was no bit of lawyering that was going to change, that was going to prevent Sarah from doing what she wanted to do. That's why she had 8 different attorneys. Jenny says, I don't think they were playing hide and seek. Yeah, that was weird, Jenny. George tapped her and said, you're it. And then his response to that was he goes to hide in the suitcase or goes to put himself in the suitcase. That didn't make a lot of sense to me either. She went to run and hide for a while. He didn't come. So she came back and he was getting in the suitcase. Yeah, that was weird. I don't know. I don't know what they were playing. They were also playing like these bizarre art games or doing arts and crafts. Something that you would do with a toddler, your 3 or 4 year old. It's at 5:22:33. I can send let me try to find that. Are you talking about the video that we were just watching? You know what? Owens press conference. Just for S's and giggles, I'm going to try to find it. James Owen was his name. James Owen, wasn't that guy his first name? Her attorney. Oh, I'm a little all over the place. Trial TV Live. Let's see. All right, I'm trying it. Oh, that's from like 3 months ago. Press conference post sentencing. See if I can find it there. No look. No. Oh, you know what? I found it here. Let's see what he has to say. Ooh. I found this on Emily Baker. Let's hear James what he has to say after sentencing. I'm going to share this with you. Emily Baker. Let's go.
Hopefully you guys could hear that too. I'm not were made.
We had two experts.
A lot of statements were made. That's accurate. A lot happened in that court today. Like a lot happened.
Very dissatisfied, very unhappy about that result based on the testimony that came out from the two experts.
You're surprised? You're surprised?
That was the expert testimony was not helpful. I don't understand why they were trying to introduce aspects of the battered spouse syndrome arguments again when it was so thoroughly rejected by the jury. It was not going to be helpful. He shouldn't have been surprised by that.
You're surprised? Well, no, he didn't say surprised. He said unhappy.
For you.
Fair enough.
Very dissatisfied, very unhappy about that result based on the testimony that came out from the two experts, as well as Sarah's testimony about the abuse that she suffered. Obviously, I don't believe she was lying about that. I think we had a history of it with photographs, with arrests
That really
were made.
wasn't the issue.
We had two experts, not only.
That really wasn't the issue. So if he's focusing on that, then he's missing the mark when it comes to these sentencing. Look, this is not your chance to relitigate the case. Your client is guilty. The only preparation required was really, look, the judge knew all about all that. He's the one that's going to be dropping the sentence. He sat through the entire trial. The judge, all he wanted to know was that she was remorseful and going to take responsibility for her actions. He didn't give a shit about rehashing the battered spouse syndrome defense argument.
The defense expert, but also the state's expert saying that she suffered from intimate partner violence. I think that is at least a minimum, a mitigator in something like this. I understand the jury's decision. We respect the jury's decision. But the testimony, the photographs, the evidence was clear that she was abused.
And this is why I wanted to hear from the judge to say on that night, Sarah could have left on that.
Yeah, but I don't think that he was not. Look, I know what she wanted to hear. She wanted to hear the big explanation, but there was no need for an explanation. The judge was so ready to give her life. I think that he was actually angry at Boone's testimony. And when you see a judge decline to give an explanation as to why, I think that in his eyes, Boone's testimony spoke for itself. And so, yeah, normally you would get that, but this is not the judge that needs the big spotlight, the big moment in the sun, the big TV time, the 15-minute soliloquy about why he's handing her the sentence. Give her life. She's been in my courtroom for 5 years. The sentence is life. We're done.
At night, I wanted to hear the judge happen in the this with
learning she had a life sentence. How did you talk to her after? How is she feeling?
Well,
mad.
she did say something to me to the effect that, "Can you believe it? I got life." And I said,
I can.
No. So, I think she was poker faced. I think maybe that's what you're referring to, but I think she was not expecting life.
Mr.
Neither was I.
Mr. Owen.
All right. I don't want to keep pilfering Emily Baker's video there, her commentary. That was a press conference. But what I learned and just hearing Owens speak about that is that he treated it like it was an appeal. The trier of fact was the jury. The judge sat there through all of the evidence. And if his hope was that somehow rehashing those arguments was going to be the saving grace or score any points, it's just sometimes you got to know who your audience is. What he didn't need to hear was people say that Sarah Boone is a good person, that she's helpful, that she's an organ donor. What he certainly didn't need to hear was more rehashing about how she was a victim of domestic violence, battered spouse syndrome, whatever. They wanted to present that fine. But all he wanted to know, all he wanted to hear was some remorse or accountability or responsibility. What he didn't want to hear, and what was probably, I could imagine. There's 2 sentences I'm going to hand out today. One of them is for 22 years, which would have been the minimum that she could get. The other was going to be life. And he probably did like one of these, these charts. And he probably was just throwing points. Okay, point for remorse, 22 years, point for this, point for that. Every time she said, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you for this, I forgive you for that, I forgive, point, and then just, you know what? I'm effing done. Life, we'll see you all next Tuesday. I could imagine that's just what it felt like when he handed down that sentence. Let me see if I can catch video of him actually handing down the sentence. You know what? Yeah, I'm just going to go to the long form video, and then I'm going to fast forward to, you're going to see the judge. I feel when I watched it the first time that he was just done with all of it. There was he was baffled by what he heard. There was no need for a statement. And then he sentenced her. Let me see if I can find it here. All right. Is my screen shared? Yes, it is. All right.
6 is the low end of the guidelines or something about.
It's 246.0 months based on the score sheet.
I did the calculation.
She was in such duress of George.
That and understanding to go below the guidelines. I think a few days later about what she
Writing. If you cannot afford an attorney.
Days, and the court costs are $418, a state prosecution fee of $100, a dirt fee.
and consider the fact that the state was willing to offer 15 years on a manslaughter as a lesser included offense based on the facts and circumstances that they were aware of prior to this trial. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal by the state?
Nope. I was fully expecting at this moment for the judge to say, all right, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. I'm going to gather my thoughts, and then I'm going to deliver the sentence forthwith. But nope, there was nothing. He just went right into it.
The court has had the opportunity to review the evidence and testimony that was presented at trial. The victim impact statements presented here today, the statements of character witnesses, both orally and in writing, Dr. Harper's report and testimony, the defendant's testimony, pre-sentencing investigation, the arguments of the state and the arguments of the defense. Court pronounces sentence as follows. Ms. Boone, court sentences you to life in the Department of Corrections with credit time served that Madam Clerk will provide to you momentarily. There are also court costs and costs of prosecution, which Madam Clerk will give you the totals of momentarily. Due to the court levying a life sentence, the court is inclined to liquidate those to a civil judgment unless I hear opposition from the state.
That was it. The rest of that is just like formalities. But yeah, that was the sentence. There was no, we're going to take a recess. I need to gather my thoughts. We'll come back with, no, he went right into it. And when a judge does that, his mind has been made up for a long time. And when she was sitting there carrying on the stand the way that she was, it was game over. Game over. Hey, Bruce is in the house. What's up, Bruce? Driver's license organ donor saying sorry to the guy in heaven. Saying things like forever or endless, which is not temporally consistent with physics. Touche. That's a good observation. The boss lady, Judge Cranick, was genius by not saying anything except life without even changing his tone. Brilliant. No, I agree. It was a statement. As much as Sarah Boone sitting there poker-faced was supposed to be a statement for the world at large about how unbothered she is, that I'm not going to allow you to see my emotions, it was just as much of a statement for Cranick to rattle off the sentence, life. Ms. Boone, life. And then drop the mic and then move on to restitution and carry on with the formalities of sentencing. It was brilliant. He was a brilliant judge throughout. He knew the law better than the attorneys. Certainly better than Owens did. He was fair. He was very fair with Boone at the very beginning of this. Throughout the entire trial, he took great, considerable care to shield the jury from nonsense. I thought that he was about as even and steady-handed as you can get. He kept amazing control of his courtroom, and he did an amazing job. He's a no-nonsense type of judge. You don't want to F around in his courtroom. Don't come over there unprepared. Don't go to his courtroom unprepared. Don't come up there with nonsense. And you know what? More importantly, I think that he, at various points throughout the trial, showed his humanity and the way that he thought about things and the way that he considered legal arguments and the decisions that he would render. He is a guy that probably plays the ukulele at children's parties or something for his grandkids. He's a guy that dresses up as Santa Claus and hands out gifts at elementary schools. He's a very human, empathetic guy. And for him to do what he did tells me, the way that he handed out that sentence tells me a lot about him, that he's not there for the spotlight. He doesn't need to say something, give the big speech at the end of the movie. He just was there to render justice, and it was rendered, and that so effectively. I have a ukulele, by the way. I got one of those toy ones I bought for my girls. They're not ready for a real one yet, but well, folks, that's all I got for you today for the Boone case. Tomorrow we are going to get in to the story of the missing lady who was last seen at LAX. She's now been spotted crossing the border, the Mexican border, between California and Mexico on foot. She's safe wherever she is in Mexico. Tragically, her father, having gone through such grief, took his own life about a week ago around Thanksgiving. I don't know what's going on with that young lady, but something's going on, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it tomorrow. I will see you guys all then, and if you haven't had a chance, go and subscribe to Lauren's channel. Check out her video that she just did right before mine, and I love you all. We will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.